Have you ever wondered what separates most jiu-jitsu athletes and the top 1% of jiu-jitsu athletes? When I first started in 2020, I did too. And since then, I've won ADCC trials twice, placed top 4 at ADCC last year, earned a black belt, competed against the best to ever do it, and hold a top 10 ranking on who's number 1 for heavyweight. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the exact system that I used to take the confusion and the chaos out of my training so you can stop dreaming about getting good and train like someone who actually is. So to start, why do most people reserve themselves to stale and rigid games, letting their original aspirations of being a world beater die off? When I first started jiu-jitsu, I came across a gentleman by the name of Kit Dale. His instructional was introduced to me by my best mate, Zach, who also got me into the sport. And I heard this famous fable of this Kit Dale guy who got a black belt in 4 years. And from everything that I had heard at the time, that was meant to be impossible. And he was also from Australia and he wasn't too far away from me, and Sydney to Melbourne, it's not a big distance. And I thought, wow, that's actually really impressive. I wouldn't mind doing something similar. And so I spoke to my coach at the time, Severino, my first gym, and I said to him, do you think that that's doable again? I'm going to butcher the Polynesian accent, but he goes, you know what, bro? If you set your mind to it, you can do it too. And I think if he had said anything else at that point, I probably wouldn't be too disheartened and I still would have achieved the same things that I did because I'm heavily autistic. But for most people, somebody shitting on their dream early on can be the difference maker before they actually get to the place where they can realize it, where they can materialize it. Most people, unfortunately, don't want you to outshine them. They want you to do well, but they hate you doing better than them. So either consciously in some cases or unconsciously in most, they tend to rain on your parade when you start to speak about these big aspirations, big goals, and big dreams. So what do we do about this? In my experience and speaking to many other people who have achieved top 1% results in their field, not just in the sport of jiu-jitsu, it's best off to keep your goals private. And I know this might sound crazy because it goes against the general narrative of the law of attraction and speaking it into existence, but most of the time, for most people, you want to keep your cards pretty close to the chest. And this is for the pure reason that most people will not support you in your goal, and they'll start to say things like, oh, that's stupid, you don't want to try that, or that's not available to you, you don't have the genetics, or you don't have the schedule, or any of those sorts of things. And what you need to remember is that's just people commenting from their personal point of view. It actually has nothing to do with you. But until you've recognized that, it's actually really difficult to separate those two things, and it can definitely hold you back from putting in the effort to achieve the thing that you want because of the negative light that is then shed on your aspirations. Now, if this means finding a new coach, so be it. If it means moving gyms, okay, fair enough. If it means putting in more study time, go for it. But don't let the advice of these individuals who want to hold you back start to shroud your confidence and your willingness to go for things, because then it will actually have an impact, because then you'll guarantee one thing, that you won't make it. So be private with your goals, keep them close to your chest, and know that you can legitimately achieve what you want as long as you refuse to let other people hold you back. If this means finding a new coach, if it means putting in more study on your own, if it means keeping these things close to your chest, by all means, please do so. But don't let the advice of those who don't have what you want stop you. Share your goals with too many people and you risk beating yourself up with their negative reflection of them. Think about where Conor McGregor has come from, or think about people like LeBron James who come from the projects all the way to NBA superstardom. If they were too vocal about their journey in the very beginning, you can probably say that they wouldn't have put the work in necessary. They must have had a great support system around them, or they kept these things to themselves and worked in private and then showed the results in public. And this is why confidence in your approach is absolutely essential to keep you going even when you don't feel like it, and why this next step is crucial for maintaining it. I had a business mentor of mine named Sam when I first started in the online space, and he explained this concept to me that really hit home about staying level-headed when pursuing big goals. You know the region of the world called the Caucasus, and it's kind of around Russia, Georgia, all those places, seemingly where every good combat athlete comes from these days. Well, It's very similar to they're called the stand countries, right? And the thing that he explained to me are also called stand countries, except they're imaginary. He talked to me about mediocristan and the fact that most things in your life that you're going to experience fall within the average. They fall within the mediocre. Sometimes we get lucky enough to go to Excitistan, where we get very excited, we live there for a little bit, and then we come back to mediocristan. Sometimes, unfortunately, depending on the way you look at it, we go to Devastationistan, which is where we get devastated about the things that are going on currently in our life. But then, inevitably, we start to move back up to mediocristan, which is where most of our lift experience happens. This journey is extremely common, and you're going to experience highs, lows, and a shitload of middles all the way through your life and your career as a jiu-jitsu athlete. The best of the best and the people who get to the 1% are those people who don't let the lows crush them and don't let the highs make them. You have to remember that most of the things you're going to experience are going to be in the average. So when you have a session that you feel like you are absolutely untouchable, you crush everyone, you submit your coach, recognize that it's a cool place to be in, but don't let yourself get carried away. When you get into the opposite end of the spectrum and you get absolutely brutalized by everybody in the training room, you get pinned and you can't get out, you get submitted by things you don't usually get submitted by, take that opportunity to remind yourself that most things are in mediocristan. And if that's true, this poor session isn't going to define you completely, nor is the high session going to define you completely. Staying somewhere in the middle mentally is a great way to stay objective in your approach, and that's not going to ruin the week or sometimes even months after you have these poor sessions. I'm constantly reminding the students in my community to remain objective, and here's the actual process of how we do this on a daily basis. It's called the MIE framework. First of all, measure. What did I do well? What did I not do well? Did I hit my goals for the session? Iterate. If yes, I did hit my goals, I'll repeat them on a more difficult training partner. If no, what am I missing that needs tuning? Is it more information or a different perspective? And E is for expand. Once I've plugged the holes and improved my strengths, what is the next link in the chain for the movement that I'm now having success with? What's that next evolution? Doing this keeps you out of the ends of the stand countries by remaining objective, which is a superpower for predictable progress, allowing you to stand out amongst all of your training partners in the room. But to actually achieve your goals and avoid staying stuck in a plateau, you're going to need to remember this next crucial step in building a world-class mindset. When I used to teach people how to get less fat for money, aka personal training, I used to run these things called 8 to 12 week challenges. They worked really, really well until week 9 or week 13. And I couldn't understand why people had such difficulty with this. We tracked their macros, we made sure they stayed away from the sweets in the cupboard, we got them walking more often, we got them playing with the kids more often, we got them training 3-4 days a week. Some of them even went for beach walks on the weekend, and everything was looking fantastic until they stopped the challenge. And I had to think about this pretty deeply and try and understand as to why this inevitably happened with each and every single person. The reason why is because they were committing to things that they could not consistently commit to long term. They could do it for 8 weeks, but it was an absolute stretch of their energy and their focus, which meant as soon as that result was garnered, they did not have the capacity to continue the result. They checked the box and they went, oh, okay, I'm not fat anymore. I can now just stop the beach walks and stop playing with the kids and stop doing all these things. And I can go back to eating Macca's and KFC and all that stuff, and I'll stay where I'm at. 4 weeks later, they'd re-sign back up to another 8 to 12 week challenge, and the process started all over again. This is what most people will define as self-sabotage. As soon as you approximate your goal and you think you're getting somewhere, you start to forget the things that actually got you to being close to achieving your goal, and you destroy the whole process. And this is why consistency is one of the most important character traits that you can develop for your mentality and also for all of your actions. Marcelo Garcia famously was on the mats the Monday after ADCC. I've competed at ADCC and I've only ever done 4 matches. He was doing 8 because he's a savage and he did the absolute division and went up against guys much bigger than him. And you really need no explanation about how good Marcelo was. But I was cooked after 4 matches. He was training on a Monday after 8 matches, which is unbelievably impressive. What does this actually teach us about why the 1% are the 1%? And so how can we learn about the way that he did things and the way that my clients used to do things so we can start thinking like the 1% and not the 99%? Well, the way you apply this is by looking at what you can actually commit to across a week. There is absolutely no point saying you're going to train 5 days a week, you're going to study 3 days a week, you're going to do extra cardio, extra S&C, and all of that stuff if you're only going to be able to maintain that on what we call a perfect week. And as you and I know, perfect doesn't really exist. And if you do hit one perfect week where everything just aligns and it's all smooth, it goes back to the concept we were previously talking about where you'd be living in Excitistan. Except we know we don't live there, we live in Mediocristan. So prepare for the average week. Commit to the minimum number of sessions you can 100% rain, hail, or shine get to each and every single week, and then add if you can, if you have the time available. The reason this is so important is because you're not going to be beating yourself up for the fact that you missed Tuesday's session and Thursday's study session, because you'll be doing what you can actually consistently commit to week in, week out on autopilot. Putting your schedule like this on autopilot frees up the energy that you'll be using to be down on yourself into the quality of your sessions. And if you are honed in and focused on quality in your sessions, there is absolutely no chance, and I've seen it time and time again with all my students, that you don't get better at a significantly faster rate and start to set yourself apart from the rest of the herd. So now you know how to think like the best in the sport. You need to make sure you're training like them and stop just focusing on submitting your training partners by creating a system that covers each essential skill you're going to need within any given round. And if you click right here, I'll take you through it right now.